all good?
I can hear you all good, and we're recording.
So,
I've got an imposter here today. It's Paddy Davenport. Paddy and I flattered together. What was that? 2013. Lucky for some. I think we were lucky. Mate, and you just telling me you're a Zoom expert now. How do you take high performance sport for kids? That's an oxymoron. Online, man.
Hey? As in, how do we train kids online?
Yeah. What do you guys been doing in Zoom meetings, man?
For us, we haven't talked too much about what we're giving kids during lockdown here. And we're not really Zooming so much with kids. I've had a couple of mobility sessions with kids at Keene in the rowing realm, but through AD where I work, it's more just us coaches and management staff getting together to chat about how we can get together post lockdown.
Really. So AD, athlete development, run by Millennium Institute or High Performance Sport, which one?
We're a business unit of AUT Millennium. So Millennium is a charitable trust. There's a number of business units under that. So the National Aquatic Centre's swim school program. There's both athlete development and our schools program, which run their holiday program for kids. And then there's the public gym there as well. And within Millennium's sort of four walls, there's a number of teams and tenants, I guess you could say. And High Performance Sports, one of them, AUT University, and their postgrad research students are another. And then physio, doctors, all that. So it's just a real hub of sports and performance, really.
Yeah, my hip surgeon, Matt Brick, he's a resident at the front of Millennium Institute. Yeah.
All right.
That place is huge now, eh? How long's that new pool been there as well? That's massive.
4 or 5 years, surely, I think.
Yeah.
The National Aquatic Centre.
Yeah. Man, so when did you graduated the year after me, 2014 was your degree?
Yeah, my undergrad. 2014 I finished. Took a little bit longer just because one of the papers is hard, the mid-science stuff. So I thought I'd take an extra semester to just get through things and do less papers. So I made sure I passed everything and didn't have to redo anything. That was the strategy. And that was all good. I didn't mind.
I took 2 extra years, so it's all good.
I did that. And then at the end of that, I was still rowing at that point, and one of my mates, Tim Wilson, he was working at AD at that time just as a part-time SNC while he finished off his degree at AUT. I was at Auckland University doing sports science. He was doing sport and rec. And I just asked him about it. He came and tested us rowers, and I was like, mate, what's this all about? Seems like a sweet gig. I'm right into this S&C training kind of side of things. And he's like, oh, cool. I'll set you up with a meeting. And then must have been 2 days later, I was in an office with Craig Harrison, who was the boss of the joint at that point. And then, he just said, come on down, get amongst it. Started coaching twice a week down at College Rifles at that academy. And then I think after about a month, the lead coach who was running it down there, he resigned, James Verco. And he was a sprint cyclist coach and I think representing New Zealand as a sprint cyclist, and he was doing his own thing. And so, after a month, I was running that academy down at College Rifles, which was right in the deep end for me, but, loved the steep learning curve.
Man, so you said you were still rowing. What was your sort of push to, you're still reasonably athletic, you're still really competitive. What's the switch in your head that goes, no, I'm going to be an awesome coach now? And then you look at that massive mountain and go, shit, that's a long journey.
That's pretty accurate. 2 things. So firstly, it was I definitely like the idea of being, not much, bugger all really, barely covers the fuel, but being paid to be there instead of paying to be there. Coaching versus being an athlete. I was pretty poor at that point, so financially it was a more sensible decision too. And the biggest thing at that point, I wasn't in a national team, I was just at the club, and I loved the sport and the people. So I think it was more important for me to be around those people than it was for me to be an athlete in the sport at that stage. And so, I'd been getting more and more into my S&C, my coaching stuff at work over the sort of 2 or 3 years, my last 2 or 3 years as a rowing athlete. And it was kind of a natural transition to go, hold up, I want to be a better coach. And so coaching as opposed to being an athlete was a really good way to stay involved in the sport and still make it mutually beneficial to my career as well as, keeping a really cool network of people.
Yeah. So when you rocked up to uni and decided you were going to do sport, was that like to be an awesome elite athlete? Was that just something to do? Something the guidance counsellor set you up with? What was the story, man?
No, the guidance counsellors are terrible, aren't they?
Yeah, I just told them my one. I was like, I'm going to go be an optometrist. They're like, oh, sweet, my job's done.
Yeah. I think my one told me, he was pretty slack. I think he told me to be like an accountant because I was good at math. I hadn't done accounting at school. So I loved PE at high school, and the sports science version of PE. I think they call it PEA. I had a cool teacher who was an ex-athletics coach who essentially just told me I was good at it. Even the writing of sports sciencey stuff. I remember the first sort of taste of biomechanics we got at high school, and that was a thing that I was like, man, this is sciencey but really cool. And because I'd always loved sport, and at that time I was really into my rowing. Just the interest in improving performance for athletes was very, very much there. So when I figured out that there was a sports science degree, which I hadn't known about until year 13 in high school, I was like, oh, sweet, I'm there. And I just think I remember mum being like, but what else? What if you don't get accepted? What if that's not a good job path? And I was like, I don't care. That's what I want to go and do. I'll make it work.
Yeah.
Didn't apply to any other unis. In my head, I was like, oh, my brothers have all gone to do trades. So if I don't get into uni, I'm just going to go and be a builder. Because that looks pretty sweet too. I loved design and everything up there. I was pretty good at that in school as well. But I wanted to do sport. And so Auckland Uni, sports and exercise science. And it was good.
And then you also got to dabble in your other passion, which is music. As I reckon that's one of the cool things about Auckland Uni is Gen Eds, and
and that's half the reason why I wasn't too phased about doing an extra semester, because I got to do, I think that extra semester when I decided I want to do 3 papers one semester instead of 4. So I want to do one of the mid science papers 205 or something. One of the second years, it was pretty tough. I was like, I'll do that when I've got less on. So just do 3 papers and I'll kind of make sure I get through that paper fine. And I did pretty good in the paper, but at the same time, it meant I get to choose an extra elective. And it was either music or ancient Egyptian history, both of which were nice. Ancient Egyptian history was probably my favorite paper at uni.
Yeah.
Just so different, but so cool. Yeah.
Was there any Graham Hancock in there? Not that I know much about it, but did they mention that name?
Not that I can recall, no.
No, he reckons it's way older than what it actually is. This is my third-hand Joe Rogan information, though, so don't quote me on what the story is there, man.
Nah.
Yeah. What our flat in 2013, was pretty intense. Old El Rancho. We had the Hickford Master on his naked bloody cycle rollers. Then we had the photographic memory, Jacob Benefield, and then you and me just wanting to balance life between pumping iron and getting grades. How much did that set you up for that slightly cruisier year, man?
That was good. That was a wicked cool year. I think why I enjoyed that year so much was because that was my 3rd year of flatting.
Yeah.
So of uni. So my 3rd year of 3.5 years at Auckland Uni. And my first year I was in the halls, which was cool. The uni experience, first time out of home, it was sweet. And then the second year was my first flatting year. Mm-hmm. And I went into this flat. There was 8 people. I didn't find a place, right? So I struggled to find a place to get to live for my second year of uni, because I moved home over summer. So just real lazy trying to get into a flat, And so this place was somewhat of a last resort. I knew 2 out of the 8 people. from the halls. The other guys were like, had no idea who they were. But I moved in there, 8 people, and it was a chaotic year. It was very, very stressful in terms of like being in a flat that was not really my kind of people. They were a lot more like party animal kind of guys. Went to different unis and got into some dicey stuff that I wasn't into. And, I spent most of that year in my room, I think, playing guitar.
Yeah.
And so to come from that year to El Rancho, the boys, where we'd bloody chuck on country music, and we're a real like tight knit group of mates. It was mean. So it was bloody helpful in retrospect. I think that got me through uni, because I think if I'd had a second year of a crappy flat, I probably would have like changed career path. Nah, all the gym, all the music and stuff from the boys, it was good.
Yeah, because like the third year is freaking, it's just so taxing, and like that's probably also what was quite good with that flat. Like Jacob and I were both in that final year of optometry. Light was at the end of the tunnel. Matt was at his final year of engineering, and like it was just kind of right. Let's do this every morning. It'd be like people getting up at various hours. You and Matt going rowing. Me.
It was a real like work hard, play hard. Like train hard, all that kind of thing. Like it was just fun. We went everything 100. We were full ball, full ticker, you know.
Yeah, man. And like, I just think about waking up in the morning and someone just like everyone's up, and then just someone just chucking on drum and bass at like 7 in the morning, getting ready for uni. It's just like, what the heck's going on?
Matt and I would have already been up for 2.5 hours at rowing, come back, and we were vibing on some Auckland Uni rowing. throw the drum and bass on and get ready for uni at 7 in the morning. It's great.
Yeah. So like we first met, you gave me a hand to move. Matt got you into that flat, was that right, through rowing? How did that come?
Yeah. Matt and I had been real good mates through uni. I think he and Jacob, the other flatmate of ours, they'd flatted at the same place as I had for first year. We were in the same halls of residence.
Yep.
And so I was there a year later, and Matt had picked me up for AUBC the whole time. And so I got to know him. Like, rowers are a different breed. Like, we're all a bit weird. And,
I'm from a family of them, mate. Don't worry.
All the early mornings. So we just got on pretty well. Pretty like-minded guys, really into our training, into our rowing. And so, just when I said I was looking for a place, I think he just said, come live with us next year.
Yeah.
I did. Was it?
And so like the AUBC stuff, like Matt, we were at Jacob's wedding in, I don't know, before lockdown, March, I think. And Matt had on the bloody AUBC blazer. Was there much of that sort of going on? Like, I know I went and saw you guys at the Waikato River that time, and it was the bloody country playlist that you guys had invented, still going strong. Was there much of that sort of boat club vibe, or is that something Matt and to an extent yourself, and you mentioned Tim Wilson, who's now a bloody dairy farmer. Life is ordinary right there. Well, what do you think was special about that vibe?
It was just like knowing what I know now about like environment and like creating culture and stuff. It was like we just found a core group of people who got on really well and shared some kind of like experiences. So the country music was kind of just like a vehicle to get people to like
loosen up
down there. Like, pretty much. So that was forced, right? So every morning when we went to rowing, Matt and I would cycle to uni the day before, pick up the uni van, and we'd go to the halls and pick up all the hall kids.
Right. At
4:45 in the morning, we were at top of Simon Street, and get in the bloody van. And so Matt's music and my music was playing. So it was drum and bass or country music. At that time, like that season of uni rowing was one of the best AUBC had for a long time. Like we had a real good competitive season, lots of good results at the university games that year. And so the country music was just kind of this like underlying tone the whole way through. So we get to the end of that season, I guess you'd call it, and everyone's partying up to the country music. And so it just like it was almost the culture like built with that as like this undertone. but it was more about the people. So we ended up having like a really, really cool group of people who just got amongst it. And again, it was kind of like our flat, like when you've got the right mixture of people, you get on with the job, and like that made for a pretty cool time and good results, which is cool.
Yeah, I know that year as well. We must have like a club night at rugby, and there was a band, and I sort of said to the guy playing, like, do you know Wagon Wheel? And he's like, oh, I know how to play it, but I don't know how to sing it. And so I just got up there and I was like, you play it, I'll sing it. And so that was like halfway through the season. And then I saw a video last year on the AU Instagram page, and sure enough, still Wagon Wheel's the like victory song for the reserves at University Rugby Club. So again, it's just like one of those vibes, and it's definitely, if you can get a sort of thing to look forward to, that everybody comes together, exactly what you're saying. Like when it comes to teams, when you're all vibing, shit can go so well. And at Christchurch Rugby Club, we had this stupid thing called we just became the Crocs for some reason, and we're just like doing this for some stupid thing. It's just like stupid things. So crack up.
It's all about identity. I think like when you've got these mantras or these like themes that teams have in common, it's kind of like a good vehicle to bring people together, even if you're like studying different stuff, or you've had completely different backgrounds, you're from different parts of the country. Like a good song and sing along is like a tool to get people, like we said before, like let down the facades and just get to know each other. Teams always have like mantras, like ways they operate, like watching the Michael Jordan docos at the moment, and like the Detroit Pistons with the Bad Boys. So it's like that vehicle to create identity. And when you've got a sense of shared identity, I think like that's when people can kind of find more in terms of like their performance and like succeed more.
Yeah. What varsity did you guys win? Is it Heatherley Shield or Heberley Shield?
Heberley, yeah. The oldest trophy in New Zealand sport, I believe.
Wow. Did you win that?
Yeah, that year we did. Yeah, that first year of AUBC.
And so
my second year. Yeah.
So you weren't the youngest. You didn't have to look after it.
I wasn't in the crew. No, I missed out. I think I was the 9th man for it. The reserve. But yeah, we won it. We won it twice that year. I remember Otago, those buggers. They protested. We had a Canadian coxswain, and it's not commonplace for coxswains in Canada to wear life jackets.
Right.
So the boys had won the first race, and it's over 3.2k. So it's a pretty hard yakka effort. And they won it, and the crew that got 4th, which is Otago's second crew, they protested, no life jacket. And so eventually we have to re-race, and our boys are livid. Like, are you serious? Like, you're really going to protest that the unfair advantage came from whether our coxswain was wearing a life jacket? But anyway, so the crew that protested didn't even race the re-race. They just wanted to annoy us. But the boys went out and beat them by more the second time. So that's all good.
I wonder if my younger brother was in that crew.
He would have, absolutely. Yeah. He would have been.
Yeah, both my brothers have won that for their respective unis, Otago and Canterbury, and I think they even had to race against each other at one point in time. They might have actually, no, that wouldn't have been right. It would have been earlier than that. But yeah, so tell us, as I said, you asked if you had to look after it. What is the tradition there around the Heberley Shield, bro?
There's a couple.
Isn't one of them pissing on it?
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't won it, so I don't know about that one. But no, it was a fun year, that one. So we won it in Ashburn in 2012, I think it was. And the tradition is that it's awarded, so it's gifted from whoever presents the trophy. And it's a big shield. It probably weighs like 20, 25 kilos, so it's quite awkward. And it's a meter across, a heavy just lump of wood. And it's given to the youngest person in the crew that wins it. So I think that was John O'Tate, and he's not small. So it was. Is
he still cycling?
No, I don't think so. But his missus is in the New Zealand elite team.
Oh right, yeah.
Raquel.
Yeah.
So the tradition is, so the youngest person has it, and they're not allowed to let it touch the ground until midnight. If it touches the ground before midnight and someone sees it, they have to give it back to them. So you forfeit this, and you have to give a keg, I think, to the team that caught you putting it on the ground.
Yeah.
Similarly, if any team can steal it from your possession, then they get it for the year.
Yeah.
So you might win, but if they come and they grab it off you, then you've lost the trophy. You know? So this person that gets awarded is in charge of holding onto this trophy for dear life until midnight. You know? And so you're awarded the trophy at maybe 4:30, 5 p.m. You got 7 hours of the after party to look after the trophy. So it's you know, you're fending off maneuvers from other unis to come and try and steal it from you. It's pretty dicey. It's pretty funny though.
Yeah. And have you been privy to the Boss Rooster at all, or?
Yeah. At North Shore, where I'm coaching now and where I rode in Auckland, our club's won it 4 out of the last 6 times, I think.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah. That's another one. That might be the oldest trophy in rowing in New Zealand, or one of the oldest. I don't know. The Head Shield and the Boss Rooster are 2 pretty old ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk us through that one. It started off as a thin piece of tin, and now it's sort of like wide.
Yeah. No. So I can't recall exactly where it was given. It was a race in like Picton versus Nelson, I think.
Yeah.
And so they raced in the harbour there in Picton, and some guys like, oh, we need a trophy, and so
because that's where rowing started out, in the harbour, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think Canterbury, I think, is our oldest club in New Zealand, but Picton's very, very close. They're around 130 or so odd years old.
Yeah.
But in this first ever race over 100 years ago, they raced in the harbour, and so some old geezer grabbed a piece of tin, cut out a little rooster, and so he gave it to the winning team. But what he'd done is he painted it in his club's colours prior to the race because he was so confident that his team was going to win. And when his team didn't end up winning, so upon kind of receiving it, the team that actually won, they had to repaint it in their colours, they decided. So that sort of started off the tradition of why it gets repainted every year, and the club that wins its colours.
Yeah.
And however it happened, now there's the rule that if you don't paint it in your club colours, if you've won it, within an hour of winning the race, then you forfeit a kick to the rest of the team, to the rest of the field. So you don't want to do that. So,
and I saw the Irish boys who Paddy McInnes was telling us about tried to nick it a couple of years ago. I thought that was a good way to spark things up. Imagine that the Boss Rooster ends up in bloody Ireland.
That would have been good. Yeah, there was another attempt at stealing it this year.
Yeah.
Boys from Mercer Rowing Club took it.
You're like, yeah.
So, yeah, I think it was just before it got awarded to them on the podium. So the race had finished, and then the Mercer boys just snuck in, grabbed the trophy in a car, and off they go. And for 25, 30 minutes, no one knows where the trophy is, and Waikato's like, oh God, we're gonna have to forfeit here. It's bloody shocking. Somehow it managed its way back.
Yeah. So, you were saying about like culture, and that makes a good team and good vibe, and training go really well. With your Westlake fellas, when do you sort of start off with them? Like, we're in the weight room here, lads, and we're going to pick up some juggling balls. We're going to go put our face to the wall over there and try a handstand. What's the initial look? And it must be known about now. You've been there a few years, but how did that start off?
Yeah, I mean, so we train, for the first question there, we train sort of 10 months. We're in the gym. The first bunch of the season, like 3 or 4 months, is fairly optional. We, as a group of coaches, we want the kids to have the freedom to do their winter coats. We don't want to get in the way of that. I'm a big believer that kids that do multiple sports are going to be better athletes in the end anyway. So, if we've got boys that are keen to go and play footy over the winter, then they should go and do that, because it's going to actually, one, they're going to enjoy it more. If we stop them, they're going to be pissed off at us. But, they're going to go and do stuff that rowing wouldn't, put them through, like in terms of the way they move and all that kind of thing. So they should do it, because it's going to make them better long term. But yeah, so the S&C side of things, I don't know, I've got a different approach, I think, like through AD, like, that idea that kids should do all sorts of things. is really important to me. Even though rowing is super competitive at high school, and especially in New Zealand, we've got one of the most competitive youth rowing scenes in the world. I'm kind of the belief that like there's no such thing as a high performance teenager.
Yeah.
And so for me to be doing a good job in terms of coaching them and what I'm providing them as an S&C, it should just be about giving them as many skills as possible that they can use in whatever they do next, wherever they go, whether it's staying in rowing or, you know, they end up playing social sport because that's just what they want to do and they go on to a career in finance or whatever. But, you know, our environment that we create in terms of S&C is just, it's about making a fun place for them to do all sorts of stuff, you know. And it's still useful, it's still relevant, it's still going to make them better athletes for rowing, but it's just not so close-minded that it's only about rowing.
Yeah. And so like two things from you historically is that shoulder mobility, and then I saw the other day you were applying some Lucas Aaron range of strength stuff, getting the hamstrings going. My younger brother in particular will vouch for a good hamstring flexibility. I think he spent years trying to get his knees on his quads, mate. Why do you think those, you know, especially like the shoulder, like you think about rowing, is, despite what people think, is heavily leg dominant, but why do you think that the shoulder and then hamstrings are hugely important?
This might take a bit of explaining, so
good.
Bear with me.
Yeah, I'm interested.
I think so. A couple of kind of facts, I guess, to start with. So the shoulder thing is, I read a piece of research. I think it was from Rowing New Zealand or the S&C, who's looking after the New Zealand rowing team, and he talked about how the area of weakness that's most obvious in athletes coming through from rowing into the sort of that early high performance pathway is their overhead strength.
Yeah.
And so I sit there going like, I want a robust athlete who can deal with my training and any training, whatever they go on to next, you know, like pushing into the RPC system or a good club system, and especially Rowing New Zealand, you know, juniors or under 23s or whatever, like you're going to be put under some fairly serious stress. And rowing is a really, really repetitive sport, as we know, right? It's about refining the single movement shape down to be as nicely fluid and well coordinated as possible. But I'm kind of the opinion that I think no two strokes actually are going to end up the same. Like there's so many variables in terms of balance, in terms of wind, in terms of like, you know, the way you perceive and react to what the boat's doing and how the guys in your crew are moving, that like it would be foolish to try and prepare someone to do the same thing over and over again in rowing. Like we're far better off trying to prepare them for refining down to something like close to it. But, you know, the inefficiencies in rowing are when they fall out of that pattern. So if a crew has poor balance and a kid can't balance the boat back up, that's when you're going to go slow. So I actually want kids to be strong in the shapes that aren't rowing, so that when they visit them, they're actually able to get back out of them really, really easily. You know, so if you think just of injuries,
the hips, man. Not the hips, the ribs. The ribs is the one that's in my head.
Yeah, right. Like injuries of any kind. So, you know, ankles when they are, you know, rolled, chronic inversion, eversion. Knees when they go into, you know, that medial collapse, or shoulders when they get popped up high into this, you know, really elevated position. Like those positions are unfamiliar, right? So they're not common positions that get visited in training. So my approach is I want to visit these really, really deep end ranges that aren't commonly visited, because if that's where the injuries happen, then if I can strengthen you when you're in those positions in the training like environment, if you ever visit them in competitive environment, then you're going to be far less likely to get injured there.
So did you have a theory on that stress factor in the rib?
Not so much a theory, no. Just like the stress factor is an imbalance, right? It's a strength in one direction and not the other. So there's too much tension pulling it in one way and not enough strength to hold it away from that pressure. So it's going to, you know, if you're constantly banging a hammer on something, it's going to give one day. You know, if you never, make what you're hitting harder, then it's going to give. So no, I just think it would be foolish to only ever strengthen in one kind of space. For instance, the shoulder. If I'm only ever doing pull work, the moment I try and do a push exercise, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I'm going to be so likely to get injured.
On the push, your honours was in the bench press, eh?
Sort of, yeah. One of my projects in third year biomechanics was on, we just had to sort of do a really, really low key version of a research study. And I did EMG on the chest, like pec major and triceps. I think it was the long head of triceps. And just looking at how activation of those muscles changed over different grip widths and heights of where you're pressing. So it was all isometric, meaning the bar was fixed.
Yeah.
Maximally go. And so at all these different widths and heights, how are those muscles working?
Yeah. So what's an EMG?
EMG is, oh God,
electromuscular something.
God, it's been a while. Electromyography, maybe? I'm not sure, actually. Jeepers.
What's the output of it?
You just get the electrical activity of the muscle.
Yeah.
So you get an electrical impulse that's measured by these electrodes that you stick on the skin that tell me roughly how much kind of electrical activity is happening in that muscle. That's it. So if we have that and we have some sort of way of measuring force at the same time, then you can sort of make good estimates of what the muscle itself is contributing to that force output.
Yeah. No, it's awesome to have like a real micro idea of things, and then you've got your degree on the whole, like a big macro of sports science, and then you're in this environment of sport surrounded by people with other ranges of knowledge. Is that where being part of athlete development and the wider millennium's pretty cool for you, man?
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes I refer to AUT Millennium as the home of high performance sport, New Zealand, but it's just a cool place to be. I'm kind of desensitized to it now, but every day when I walk into work, and Richie McCaw and his wife Gemma are just in there, and Richie's minding the baby while Gemma's in with the Black Sticks training. Val Adams is in there beating Sonny Bill at shot put. Or the breakers are in there just training in the gym, and it's right beside our kids. It's pretty cool that's what I'm around every day. I definitely like that for sure. It's pretty wicked.
So what's the idea, going back to the uni, what's the idea around high performance? Is it talked about much, or do you sort of feel when you're in the uni system it's just about getting the bloody degree? Is there much of a pathway going on? As you say, Millennium's at AUT, so it's not even part of Auckland Uni.
No, I guess unis have their strengths and weaknesses in terms of what their degrees sort of angle you towards.
Yeah.
Auckland Uni was very much we want you to get into the clinical space. Our degree is about preparing you for the clinics that we have, in a way.
Yeah.
And they know that not every graduate's going to become a worker for their clinics and service those types of people. So guys who are coming back from cardiac issues or need some help with rehabilitation from pretty severe injuries, or right up to minding or providing rehab and health programs for people recovering from diabetes or trying to mitigate the effects of diabetes. That's sort of where the sports science side of Auckland Uni was geared, versus AUT, who's really they're more in the sports realm. They're a little bit more recreational. And then down south, Otago's more about PE, physical education. So they've definitely all got their different areas of strengths. I wouldn't say any of them is sort of directly preparing you for high performance, but you can take parts of them for sure. Each of them have their classes, for instance, within the degree that will help you in that area.
And do you think Auckland misses out in that they AUT and Otago both have physiotherapy? Do you think Auckland misses out? Obviously there's massive med school at Auckland, but and physics and bioengineering and stuff. But especially when you're talking about rehab and workplace wellness, do you think that's maybe where the other two may have an advantage? Just like I said, they're all different. It's hard to sort of think about, eh?
Yeah, maybe. I think one of the things that I know AUT's got, they've got their third year placement.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a co-op. And I think that's something that AUT students, even though it's going to be a real drag getting through it if you haven't got a good placement to go, like where you're working, it's something that actually really, really helps people get an idea of what an actual career is going to be like going into a workplace and sort of merging between just uni and career,
Mm-hmm.
versus uni at Auckland, you're just doing your studies. Like you're always in your lectures. The closest you get to it is actually going to your labs.
Yeah.
So I think where Auckland Uni kind of has a gap is that actually preparing people for careers, showing them where they are, at least in the sports science space. Yeah.
Yeah. But on that third year, mini study, was that pretty valuable in terms of, coming up with an idea to test, coming up with a study design, and then maybe getting some output from it? Like, was there a place to then
sure.
contribute that information to a wider knowledge set?
I think so. Yeah, that to me, that was a way for third year biomechanics paper to prepare people for postgrad research. Though I think they're giving you a taster of what it's going to be like. For sure, there was a bunch that I learned through that study in terms of the process of approaching your research study, like what you have to pay attention to, all the considerations around ethics and all that kind of thing. That was really valuable to just understand that, because then any research that I'm able to read now, you understand a bit more about what goes into creating them, and also what the limitations are of some research studies.
So being surrounded by the likes of Grant Schofield, for me, the idea in the back of my head for a master's project is an intervention study. And having talked to Auckland Uni, they don't really have the setup to do a commercial master's, whereas AUT's got this Masters of Science, I think it's called, or no, Masters of Philosophy. That's what it is. And so Grant basically said that do your design and do your study intervention within the realms of your work. Is that quite tempting for you? You're already semi in their system as well. You're in the belly of the beast, so to speak. How motivating is it every time you start a season off kind of wanting to try something and wanting to measure it and then get the piece of paper for your work?
I can't say for me that's something that I'm super into at the moment. I did almost do a master's. I got a scholarship and I was ready to crack into it, but I really struggled personally with how far away from the practice I was doing the master's was.
Yeah.
So when I was going through the motions of trying to figure out my PGR1 or PGR9, I can't recall which one it is, but designing my study, what do I want to look at? What's the things I'm actually trying to get out of this? For me, that process was taking away so many layers of practicality in terms of what I'd want to be doing in coaching, that it became almost not as relevant as I wanted it to be. I felt I wasn't finding out what I wanted to find out, at least at the master's level. I think I could have if it was a postgrad diploma. If it was a
PhD.
Doctorate, PhD. Just at that time, I didn't feel like that was going to give me the answers I wanted. That I felt I could get from just going and playing with ideas in the gym space. I'd rather go and do, play with these ideas. Just implement it, give it a try, even though it's not, with these perfect scientific boundaries and a really, really well-designed study. It's actually getting into the weeds of it. It's trying. And there's so much more freedom and flexibility with that. You could be wrong almost. There was no, you could play a lot more with ideas. It was just a lot more freedom, I think, when I was deciding between do I want to work more or do I want to do a master's? And working was way more appealing. Just getting into the weeds of coaching.
So then in terms of personal development in that space, the people that are they coming in from a perspective of experience, or is it the AUT giving a place for their postgraduate and PhD students to talk to their topic?
So in terms of like
your own personal development within the system of athlete development. So your broader based coaching knowledge, where does that come from?
For us at the moment, it's really internal. Like I guess we're pretty lucky. Well, we were, I guess.
World's
our program director at AD until late last year was Dr. Craig Harrison, and so he's a guy who's done his PhD and is helping other guys do their PhDs and masters now. He works with AUT, but he sort of had his own internal PD process that we used with an AD. So, we would just get together on a regular basis as a group of coaches and discuss an idea. We were always being really reflective about what we were doing down in our sessions. But our program wasn't super linked to AUT or any research at that time, even though Craig had students doing research in the space of youth athlete development. There's a guy up at Whanapuro Primary who's really changing the game in terms of what they deliver in terms of like a PE curriculum for primary school kids. But that wasn't AD's research, I guess, even though it was super, super relevant. So we kind of, Craig took all these ideas from research that he's seen or been involved with, and then we bring them in and we play with it in academy, in our programs.
I mean, so then I guess that takes us to what we sort of sat through last weekend, the Real Movement Intensive. Like for me, well, both of us, we found Keegan in 2013 when Sonny Bill was training with him. We were into Elliot House and then the Hodge twins, mostly for a laugh. But in you and I would program stupid CrossFit based style workouts in the uni gym. But yeah, we sort of have followed Keegan along, been impressed with like the juggling and handstands and mobility and things like that. And you've been able to sort of be influenced a little bit by that and take it into your work. For me, it was like seeing Yosefa was going to be talking, and then I saw Nigel Beach was going to be talking, and then all of a sudden Derek Woodsky posted that he was going to be talking, and I was like, oh, shit, I'm in for this. And I said to you, like, heads up, this is such epic value for 75 US bucks. What was the trigger point for you?
To just sign up?
Yeah.
So Craig, our previous director, he's finished up now. He has been consulting back to us a little bit. So I guess for me that like the place where I was getting my PD and my ideas has been gone for a few months.
Right. Yeah.
And like you say, we've been really, really interested in what Keegs and Co are doing with Real Movement, and I've tiptoed around it long enough, and I was like, yeah, this looks interesting, I'll do it. And I kind of bit the bullet, not really knowing what the intensive was going to be. I was just like, yeah, Stag's doing it, cool. Like, I'll get amongst it. I've got nothing else to do in lockdown. And then, in my position now, like I'm running AD now that Craig's finished. And so there's a heap of stuff around business and business management and social media and trying to create new business and like get ourselves out there as a company that I'm sort of struggling with, I guess. Like, it's not at all an area of expertise I've had. I didn't study anything to do with business through school or marketing or social media management. And so in that week, there's just like, I was pretty blown away with like how forthcoming all those guys were with sharing their experiences and ideas in that space. And so, 4 days, I was like, holy crap, I've learned so much that I can apply to athlete development now. And like have come out of it really, really invigorated about what we can do in the scope, how much influence we can have if we actually do things well. But I definitely saw the value after being involved for that 4-day intensive of like how far reaching that Real Movement program could be.
Yeah.
Even like not only for myself, but also our coaching team, I could talk a lot about it. Like there's a heap in that Real Movement community, and that's all the classes or online content in terms of like individual PD and business PD for me.
Yeah. And so have you been connecting with anyone yet or?
Within Real Movement?
Yeah.
Not heaps yet. I'd love to be more involved in that youth space. I think like, obviously that's where AD is, athlete development. Like we work with 8 to 18-year-olds, and I know Jordan over at Exalto is like trying to really get involved in the youth area. There's a handful of others in a chat, but I think, even for Real Movement, the youth area is like fairly green. Like it's not something that even Keegs has explored. And Keegs said in the intensive, is like, I'm not really sure about the youth space yet, even with his own kids.
Yeah.
I think that I really do think we've got a pretty cool model, like how to work with youth athletes. So a lot of the considerations that we should be, making compared to how we work with adults. So I think I can bring a fair bit of it that, and that's all research based. That's what Craig brought to AD. Like, here's the proof, here's the science. So, it would be cool to get that up and running a bit more with Real Movement. And I would love to get our athlete development team within that community, so we can actually have a bit of a network to create PD for each other.
So like, were you guys, obviously you're still around. Were you guys experiencing sort of growth and that sort of thing?
At AD?
Yeah.
No, we're just kind of stagnant. We've been stagnant for a wee while there.
And that's just from turnover of athlete though, right?
Yeah, it's the business really. Like it's neither Craig nor I were experts in the field of business.
Yeah.
So it's, we're coaches first and foremost, I guess. And so doing the business side of it, the social media side of it, and putting our faces into that, and like trying to really drum up business through those avenues and expand our reach, like that's really unfamiliar territory.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, like that's the solution to us having way more impact as well. Like if we can just share what we're doing to more people, like I think they'll love what we're doing and get amongst it for sure.
Yeah. And so you were saying to me the other day, like when we were spitballing about maybe doing programming and stuff like that, you're like, well, if somebody's already in an, as you see, you don't like the word elite youth athlete, but if they're sort of the higher level youth athlete, they're already in within a system. But the guys within your program, it's about giving them an outlet for not necessarily specific sporting types, but strength and resilience and the tools that sport offers. And so what's the sort of, like, I'm sure it's hugely rewarding, what's the sort of vibe that you get both from the kids and then their parents?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like you say, we don't really get the kids who are already doing super well. So we're not helping already awesome athletes become better athletes. That's sort of not the niche group of kids that athlete development where I works with. We get the kids who are missing that. So, they're good athletes, but either their school or their team or, wherever they're operating is missing some stuff. Like they don't have the S&C side of things. They don't have the mental skills and the goal setting work. Or they're just not in the first team that gets all of that at their high school, So we're a place where anyone at any stage of sport can come to find that. Obviously we're a private facility in terms of they come to us and they pay different to it's a surplus to their school stuff or club stuff. But yeah, we definitely service sort of the non-high performers at the same time.
Yeah, and from an outcome perspective, have you seen some people sort of reach that level, or once 18's gone, you've seen them show up in an elite realm somewhere else? And obviously, with sports, it doesn't have to be playing sport; it can be in business or PhD or whatever it is. The confidence and skills from sport are so wide-reaching. Are you sort of guys getting some feedback later in life from anybody yet?
We've had a few. I've only been at AD for 5 years now, and a lot of our athletes, we haven't sort of had too many graduating that time. We've predominantly been at the younger side of things, sort of 8 through 12-year-olds. Most of our athletes that come in that are older, they tend to stay a little shorter with us, between 3 and 12 months. But I think, they get what they feel they needed, which is I've learned how to move a little better. I'm more confident about myself in terms of my athletic abilities. So I'm kind of ready to push to that next step. And so most of those guys are going into those, whether it's a club team or an RPC environment, they're stronger, fitter, more confident, and they go on and they just, they've gotten to what they wanted. So they come to us with sort of a bit more of a short-term goal. Whereas the younger kids, they're coming for, I guess, like they're coming for the long run.
Yeah.
And we've still got a bunch of them in the program. We've got like, maybe 5 to 10 kids. We don't have heaps overall. We've got 50 across our 2 locations.
Yeah.
But there's probably 5 to 10 that have been there for over 5 years.
Awesome.
3 to 5 years. And so they've gone from these, really, really young kids, like 8, 9, 10 years old, pre-growth spurt, pre-puberty. And just, they've been immersed in it the whole time through. And, there's a handful there. There's one in particular. Like I say, I don't believe in any kind of elite kid. Like there's no such thing to me as a high performance team, but there's one that's just like phenomenal in terms of her athletic capabilities.
Yeah.
So she's one that I think if I was ever going to put like some gusto behind in terms of saying she's going to crack it, she might be an elite level person. But our program's not necessarily about churning out high performance athletes. Like we just want people to be happier in sports, to have more positive experiences in movement and a more positive relationship with movement and sport and exercise, and be more confident about that whole thing. Like it's not about just creating athletes. It's about creating better people.
Yeah, which is awesome. And that was like something that like I've coached swimming at sort of 5 years old, and like entrance swimming, and then I've coached water polo at teenage. I was a teenager too, at like intermediate and year 9 and 10 level, and like again, it's just like one of those things that skill acquisition, interaction with other people, learning ability, confidence that shit, I've achieved something is just so massive, and that's why you do it, and why you get involved, or why you sit in a learner's pool and freeze your ass off for an hour and a half. But you mentioned Jordan Potts' name there. One of the massive things that I hadn't really considered, because it's been, don't want to say that too loud, nearly 15 years since I've done some real coaching, and for him to say that mental skills acquisition for our even the young kids, like the 8-year-old kids, is just massive. He's bringing up things like breath work and mindfulness and things like that. Like, holy cow, how much sort of negative mental space are you seeing
in the youth athletes we've got?
Yeah,
a fair bit. Like,
jeez.
There's a heap that goes into that, I think a lot of our younger kids at the moment, and like this generation of youth athletes and youth in general, there's a whole heap of barriers in their lives. So they're like, for instance, like they're the most sleep deprived generation of kids ever.
Yeah.
Right? Like they've got the busiest generation of parents ever. So their parents aren't as often in their lives. The demands of sports systems in terms of what's expected of you to reach the next level, and regardless of what stage you are, that's the highest it's ever been.
Yeah.
So there's so much stress in kids' lives that like it's not surprising that there's a lot of like negative mental states in young kids. So that's kind of why we say like we don't need to create a youth athlete. Like we don't need to make this person a high performing athlete. We just want them to feel better about themselves and be better when they leave here.
Yeah.
So the whole point for us is like, we're really big on environment, right? Like, so it's not so much about exactly what we do when you're here, but when you come to AD, you're going to have a bloody awesome time. Like the coaches give a shit about you. Like we're going to pay attention to what you like. We're going to form great relationships with you. And so you're going to come back because it's people that care, that don't put heaps of stress on you, that just want you to be better and enjoy things more. Like, I think that's kind of what's missing for a lot of young kids. They just don't have that positive space that's not so highly stressful, that's so geared towards what do you need to achieve to get to the next spot. We want that, but there shouldn't be a negative tone to it.
Yeah, like starting to hear some better things from swimming. Like I found bloody 4th place ribbon from an 8-year-old the other day, and I didn't even know about it. And like I remember sitting on the side of the pool 2 years in a row, not qualifying for New Zealand juniors in tears, and it's like far out. What was the point of all that? Turns out as an 8-year-old, 4th best in the country. Like, whatever. Like it's meaningless. I was just probably the fourth in line at that competition. But yeah, the pressure of swimming was massive when I was coming up through it, and then it's no surprises that when I found something like water polo, which was still in the pool, was team sport, it was rough as guts, it's intense. You get all the vibes of swimming, but without the black line fever, it was just wicked. And then the thing that sticks in my mind about swimming is taking a year off and just coming back for the summer and then going to the Southland Champs and qualifying for the Div 2 Nationals and winning a bunch of medals at it. It's like, man, it's probably you don't want to say the word overtraining, but like you said about sleep deprived, like, and you're trying to go through high school, you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going to bed at 9 o'clock because you've got afternoon swimming, you've got homework to do, and you want to have a life of you want to watch a little bit of Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon. Like, man, it's no wonder you give the thing away.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's just so much. Like, if you think of what adults have got on in their lives.
Oh yeah.
And adults are busy, and adults are also sleep deprived. Like, kids are working on adult schedules though. Like, kids have to get up when their parents get up for work. Like, and that might be 2 hours before they even have to be at school, but they have to get up at the same time because that's when mum and dad leave to go to work.
Yeah.
So you got to be up and out the door at the same time. And then school finishes at 3, but parents don't finish work until 5. Unless you're lucky enough that you can take time off and go and work from home, or you're a family who's one of the parents can go and pick the kid up because you've got the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, it's something I always say to my the parents and the kids at work. Hey, they're like, well, what's the vibe with devices? And I said, well, devices aren't really wrong, but you want to be off them 2 hours before you go to bed, because guess what? If you're on it, say you're going to bed at 8 o'clock and you're on that device till 8 o'clock, and your brain's not asleep till midnight, and you've got to get up at 6 o'clock because you've got to be at the bus at 10 to 8, and mum and dad have got to go to work. Guess how much sleep you've actually had? You've only had 6 hours. 6 hours sleep, no matter what time you're in bed. And then they're like, oh yeah, and it's still not proven, but the sort of chick studies and the watch, they had a light meter given to some primary school kids, and it seemed that the kids that had more light exposure during the day had less short-sightedness, and same with the chick models. The more light you give them, the less short-sightedness there is. And then when they compare Taiwan Chinese immigrants to Sydney Chinese immigrants, again, the Sydney kids have less short-sightedness than that. And so that with that study, they sort of think it's the same societal pressure, the same close to diet, but it's just sunshine hours. Aussie kids get out more, and having lived in Aussie,
totally, man,
you've got all the excuses to get outdoors, man. It's bloody awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot in that. Like, one of the kind of mantras, I guess, for us at AD is that kids aren't mini adults. Like, we've got to stop treating them like that. And so we've talked a little bit about sleep, but even sleep cycles, right? So kids' sleep cycles are different, and kids' sleep cycles change as they go into their teens. So
you've been a teenage boy, eh?
Oh yeah.
It's like midnight. You're like, I don't want to go to sleep yet. 10 o'clock in the morning, you're like, man, I want to be asleep.
So there's a great physiological reason for that, right? Like, so.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard Matt Walker?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, moving school back half an hour, like, reduces car crashes by 30%. Like, what?
Yeah. But so, I think understanding like the differences between the adolescent, the preteen, and the adult is really, really key. So one of the things that's like always struck out to me that Matt Walker talked about is how, when we go to sleep, the pressure to fall asleep is governed by melatonin in the body, right? So there's a chemical reason we fall asleep. Screens sort of inhibit the release in the body of melatonin. So that's slowing down or pushing back the time that melatonin is released, which makes you fall asleep. Teenagers, there's a little bit of a story to this, but back in the day, teenagers actually used to be, when we were still tribal, they used to stand watch over tribes in the early evening. So
that makes so much
kind of Just after dark, like before we had light, when the sun went down, that was a chemical. Well, the reaction was that the chemistry in the body changed, right? So melatonin got released when the sun went down. So adults and babies, they'd go to bed early. Teenagers would stay up early in the early evening, and they then would go to bed sort of midnight.
Yeah.
And what's happened over the however many hundreds or thousands of years of that kind of process existing is teenagers' sleep windows shifted later. So, and Matt Walker's got some really cool stats on this around like, it's very, very well proven that the average like time of melatonin release in a teenager is about 2 hours later than an adult or a baby, right? So you couple that teenagers want to go to bed at about 11 or 12 p.m. Like that's when their body wants them to, compared to an adult who's 9 or 10 p.m. And a baby who's 9 or 10 p.m. At the same time, they're going through puberty. So they've got greater kind of stress on their system, meaning a teenager has got to sleep more. They need about 1 or 2 hours more sleep. They need 9 to 10 hours instead of 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So if you're thinking about a teenager who, you're saying your lifestyle, you've got to go to bed at 9 p.m. because you've just got to be up at 4:45 or 5 a.m. to go to training and getting it done before school. And school's constrained in terms of time because of when work for parents is. If I'm a kid whose body's not telling me to go to bed until 12, and therefore ideally I shouldn't be waking up until about 9 or 10 a.m., but I'm shifting all of my daily habits 4 or 5 hours earlier, like it's no wonder I'm going to have a bad time getting enough sleep and feeling energetic and all that kind of thing. Man, like that's a big, big problem.
It makes so much sense. Like we didn't have too many, but we had a few night games for soccer, and like they were just the greatest games I've ever played in my life. And same for water polo. We'd play at 9 o'clock on a Friday night, and holy shit, it was like the biggest adrenaline dopamine dump ever. That's why I think that must be why I loved it so much. It's just like it was played at the perfect time for a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah, totally. And I think what kind of hits home, again, I'm drawing on that Matt Walker guy because I just found it so fascinating. But like the impact of a single hour of sleep is like crazy. So the best example he shared was around daylight savings.
Yeah.
So 2 billion people around the world have experience daylight savings, and the just massive change in these stats and those in that population. So the day you lose an hour of sleep over these 2 billion people, that next day after everyone's lost an hour of sleep, there's like a 25 or 24% increase in car crashes
and heart attacks,
fail rates, heart attacks, suicide, police ticketing. And then the day people gain an hour of sleep, there's like a 20% decrease in all of it. Like one hour, one night, like makes that significant a difference.
And it was the same for that school state that moved, like I said, moved their start time back half an hour, so not even a full hour. And they, teenagers aren't the best drivers, so they got the highest stats anyway, but it dropped their teenage car accidents by 30%. And it was like, okay, that's pretty bloody significant, and something's going on there. Yeah, and yet we do, like you say, we do this experiment when nobody really. There's, thankfully there are still farmers out there, and your parents are some of them, but there's still even like on the farm, they just work with the sun mainly anyway. They don't really care what the clock is.
Yeah.
So it's pretty.
Daylight savings is just a pain in the butt for my parents.
Yeah, especially bloody dairy cows. They don't care what time it is. Mate, you've got Yale on, mate. And your Sefa as well is set a few water polo guys up with overseas. Like obviously in like the rowing system, you've said about RPC, and it's regional performance camp for anybody that's a bit lost on that. And there's lots of those across sports. And there's 19s and 23s and then elite. And I brought up to Yusuf about how, well, it might have not even been him, might have been someone else, how there's a little bit of a shift now that they've had the case where some elite guys did they go to 19s or 23s? I think they did 1 year of 23s and one, and then they went to an American university and now they're back. They've managed, and they've maintained skill and performance. They've managed to get back into the system. Are we seeing it? Do you think we're seeing a change that maybe this world, life, having some athletes with life might be a good thing?
Yeah, I've definitely got like a kind of strong stance on it. So there's a bunch of things that go into it, and I think it would be foolish of any entity to expect an athlete to be ready for elite sports, especially in an endurance sport like rowing, by their early 20s, right? So we know in science that kids aren't no one's reaching their prime until mid to late 20s and even up to like early 30s. That's why guys like Mahi Drysdale and Robert Dow did so well, and the other Swindells. Like most of our aerobic endurance event athletes in New Zealand are older, they're like 30s.
Yeah.
Yet a lot of our endurance sports at school level are so competitive that kids are burnt out or told they're not good enough or not accepted into the next stage of that sport before they're 20.
Yeah.
So if I've got a kid who's being told like, you're not good enough to be in an RPC yet, and that kid drops out of the sport, they'll never know anything about their potential in the sport because they're so far away from being physiologically close to their max, like their capacity to deal with the training load, to make those adaptations, to actually get anything out of it and see what they're actually capable of.
Yeah.
I think, for those kids that are, that do go overseas and have that experience. You all good?
Yeah.
Billy's
up, but yeah, finish off and we'll wrap it up.
No worries. I think those kids like. Hey Billy.
Say good day to Pat.
I think those kids just get like some freedom, man. Like they all of a sudden they go into something that they've got, a cool sense of identity with a new place. It's novel. They're not kicked out of the sport. They're not shunned by any entity, so they can just kind of make the most of it. And then they're left to develop. Like the focus is on developing the person for until they're like early 20s, 22, 23, when they finish university. And I think if you can keep them engaged in the sport until that time, through something like university rowing, then they will be more interested and they will know a lot more about themselves and whether or not the sport's for them, whether they've got the capacity to push on in the sport. So yeah, like there's a lot to be said about that. There could be a whole nother like discussion around how do we actually keep kids in the sport long enough until they see what their potential really is.
Yeah, as I said, for swimming, the amount of kids that drop out at 15, they're nowhere near elite, but that's because they've done 8 to 15 was my maths, 7 years of elite athlete performance.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a lot to unpick in that.
Yeah. This is not the first podcast that's been cut short by this little one, and she's featured on.
So good.
Mate, tell us where people find Paddy Davin. It's just Instagram, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Paddy
for
Davin.
Me, just Paddy Davin. I think PADDIEDAVEN. And then I think that one is AD_academy on Instagram.
I'll link that in the show notes.
Cheers, buddy.
Mate, you weren't much of an imposter. You're awesome. And I'd say plenty of people would be keen to yarn. And as I said to yourself, that college system out of school athlete development stuff, there's another dude who's in Real Movement as well that you can link up with. He's in New Zealand. Yeah, big things.
I've met him a couple of times, I think.
Yeah.
He's around. Like I say, Millennium's got crazy cool fraternity of people around that. Just opening the doors would be good.
Awesome, bro. Thank you.
All right. No worries. Cheers, boss.